that it's generating, that buzz that goes out after a major story is released, industries and companies are very interested in what that buzz is. And in fact, there's a bit of a market out there for companies who know how to hone in on that buzz, who can measure that buzz, and who enable that buzz. I mean, you have seen this at the bottom of every newspaper. There's always those icons that you can click on because you read it, you dig it, you want to Facebook it, you want to send it to somebody else, right? All of these things are tools that are basically enabling word of mouth.
Right.
Hey, I heard about this. I may not pick up the phone and call you, but I might send it to you as an email or as a text or as whatever. And this is a significant phenomena. As a matter of fact, this is now the new age of marketing. For products, for anything that's out there, if you want to generate buzz, you have to be on all the major sites where the buzz is, where the conversations are happening. They're happening on Facebook, on Twitter, on sites like Dig and Reddit. These are all ways in which I think what you're talking about as a very basic human need, the need to discuss, is evidenced instead through these online tools in social media, but they're serving the same purpose.
There's a lot of sharing. There's also, so many times, even when you go to a newspaper online, you might look at the most popular articles. We're kind of drawn to what other people are reading.
That's right.
And we want to sort of be in the loop. So whether it's face-to-face or it's using some electronic medium, it's still the same thing.
It's no accident. We all know that Facebook recently changed its algorithms. Why? Because they're prioritizing certain content above others. And that whole prioritization is based around where the buzz is, where the conversations occur, immediately following some kind of a news story.
Well, we all know that India is not necessarily known worldwide for a great environmental record. But now Delhi has something to be very proud of. The Delhi Metro Rail Corporation has actually been certified by the United Nations as the first metro rail and rail-based system in the world to get carbon credits for actually reducing greenhouse gases. So we know greenhouse gas emissions are a big problem, and you think about the huge population in India and the number of people on the roads and the vehicles and the pollution being completely out of control. Well, Delhi Metro has earned carbon credits worth a whole bunch, and they're so non-polluting and environmentally friendly. This is in keeping with the clean development mechanism from the Kyoto Protocol of the United Nations. And you might wonder, how in the world can you prove that the emissions have actually gone down in any given major metropolitan area like New Delhi? I mean, it's a huge place. Well, for a long time, it was very difficult to prove this, but the Delhi Metro proposed an innovative method of actually sampling emissions, and these sampling techniques were finally approved by the United Nations, and it's based on that they were given these carbon credits. They have actually been credited with removing over 91,000 vehicles from the roads in the city daily.
I think that's great news, because every time you go to India, you're gridlocked in traffic. Most of the time, it's hard to move around the city. And what I recall the most is just the number of construction cranes and construction occurring. And you know that there's a lot of soil erosion and everything else that contributes to the pollution problem. To me, what has been missing in India has been public transport, reliable, modern public transport. And if Delhi can be the shining beacon to the world, that if you can accomplish that in a place like India, then there's no place left, including the United States, where we shouldn't be going towards those kinds of goals here.
Well, the capital city is leading the way.
Folks, this was a headline out of the New York Times that really caught my eye. Rise and fall of fat in India. You know, when we all grew up, when my parents' generation grew up, it was good to be chubby because it implied that you were well taken care of. You were fed well, you were probably housed well, and you had plenty of access to prosperity, right? It was a sign of prosperity. And in fact, the author even goes so far as to say, if you look at all our gods and goddesses, they're pretty plump too. You know, they're not exactly the shining stars of being physically fit. And that actually has pervaded for hundreds, if not thousands of years in India, that idea of being plump and fat as a way to show prosperity. Well, now times are changing. Call it because of hyperglobalization or modernization or maybe even Hollywood, Bollywood, right? Today, if you look at Bollywood cinema, you won't find chubby actors and actresses. Everybody's in shape these days. You know, the men are all chiseled and cut, the women are all size 0. And while you might argue that that's a bad thing for India in the direction that we're heading, it's actually relatively a good thing, because in India there's never been an awareness or recognition that this is a bad health trend to be chubby or to be fat. We've often taken it for granted. But now what's happening is people are walking less. They're doing less exercise. They're working more in an office-type environment. So that natural ability to burn off those extra calories has gone out of the Indian lifestyle. And so now, because of Bollywood, Hollywood, and this new modernization, people are starting to embrace exercise. I think that was the one point the author was really successful in making in this article, is that obesity finally has been recognized by the Indians as a negative thing. And so now, today, if you are plump, in India, people are starting to see that, hey, maybe you're not taking care of yourself. Maybe you're not doing the things you ought to be doing. Maybe you're not able to have enough time or means to go to the gym. So it's having the opposite connotation, which I think ultimately is a good trend for India. It means that people will ultimately be healthier.
Well, the thing is that it's neither here nor there, right? There's one extreme of being overweight being seen as a good thing, but of course the health repercussions, we all know that there are very high rates of diabetes and high blood pressure, heart disease.
And in India, they are spiraling.
They are, and they're actually, exponentially more in some cases than other cultures. But that being said, the balance needs to be struck between health and then a body consciousness and a body image focus that can also be unhealthy. So we see these trends, of course, in urban India. One could argue that still in rural India, they're living much more active lives and nobody thinks about going to the gym. But when you think about how the lifestyles have changed in cities around the world, clearly India is affected as well. And so we're now trying to find that balance between eating disorders and good health, right? We don't want to be on one extreme.
That, and you add the inflation and cost of food in India, and I think people are also being aware that, gluttony, you can't support it economically either.
Mm-hmm. Well, nowadays our lives are so busy and we have so much to do, we may not even make the time to make it to an in-person therapy appointment. Guess what? Video conferencing is fixing all of that. There are a lot of therapists online who will do therapy sessions over Skype or some other kind of video teleconference. And it's becoming pretty popular. You can squeeze it in between different events during your day, over your morning coffee or whatever, to make it simple. You don't have to deal with parking. You don't have to deal with the amount of time that goes into an in-person appointment. They could be shorter appointments. But of course it's controversial, right?
Well, sure, you don't get to go in and lie down on your therapist's couch like you're supposed to. And I don't know, I guess there's a part of me that says, okay, yes, you can get the message delivered to you via technology, but the experience of going, I think, adds a formality, which makes you confront some of your fears, rather than maybe treat it frivolously because you can, to make it convenient for yourself.
There's a convenience factor. There's also the idea that eye contact is often a very important part of a therapy session. And so with video conferencing, one could argue, hey, you're still seeing each other on the screen. But as you know, often the camera is located at the top of the screen and you're not necessarily looking directly into the camera when you're speaking.
Yes,
you have to kind of train yourself to do that.
You can't observe body language. It might be harder to perceive expressions, especially